Hi, this is Melinda Lefteris. I'm one of the FLVS counselors at Florida Virtual School Flex, and I'm here with my amazing colleague and school counselor, Miss Christy McMillan. And today we're going to do a presentation for you guys on career development. So what exactly is career development? You might be asking. And something to remember about career development is that it encompasses many things. And it can expand across your whole lifetime. It's this process. And so today we're going to focus on that first step in the process. We're going to discuss self-exploration. And this is a tool that you can use that will help you as you're trying to determine where you want to go to college, what kind of career path you want to choose. This is the very first step. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some tools such as interest inventories and other things that you can use to help you along the way. No. Okay, so let's talk about the materials that we're going to cover. First of all, we're going to talk about developing a career plan. Then we're going to learn a little bit more about ourselves. We're going to look at our personal values, our interests, and maybe some skills that we have. And by learning about these things about ourselves, it'll help us make these better decisions. And then last, we're going to talk about these interest inventories. And this will help you along your path with trying to figure out what you guys want to do. And before we start, I'd like to ask that each of you get out a piece of paper and a pen to take some notes, because along the way, we're going to ask you to do a few exercises. So if you guys could do that, that'd be great. And also, if you guys have questions along the way, you can always put it in the chat box, and either me or one of my amazing colleagues that are here assisting will be able to help you. So first, let's talk about developing a career plan. So the purpose of that is to figure out a path between where we are now and where we want to be, and how we're going to fill in that gap. So for example, I've just noted a few of them here. So say, for example, your end goal is to choose a career, and that's 5 years down the road. Okay, so there's going to be many different steps that you need to follow, and that you need goals that you need to accomplish before you get to that final goal, right? So here are just a few that I have made on this PowerPoint, but you guys are more than welcome to throw in some of your own. You could, for example, take the SAT, right? That's going to be probably a goal of yours in order to go to college, if that's your path. Applying to college, looking for a summer internship. You're going to have to build and build and build your skills to get where you want to be. Does anyone have any other different ideas that they can throw out there of different steps they might choose to get where they want to be?
Hello, teachers. How are you guys? I have a question.
Sure.
So does college look for your SAT scores and ACT scores, or they look for your GPA?
That's a great question. So mainly they're going to probably look at both, but it depends on the college. So you're always going to want to do some research into this. Some colleges are leaning away from SATs and ACTs and focusing more on your grades and looking at your GPA, but that would depend on the college. That's a great question.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna take the SAT tomorrow. So I want to ask like, how many times are you supposed to take, like do you, like, how many times are you, like what is the limit, what is the limit of amount of take time?
You could certainly take it as many times as you want. So I would recommend taking it at least twice, simply because you will very likely do better. Research shows that there's a very good chance that you're going to do better the second time you take it. Just because the first time you're learning, you could take practice tests, of course, if you wanted to. You can get online and find some of those, or contact your counselor for some resources. But yeah, absolutely, you can take as many times as you want.
Okay.
Question. Add that it makes sense to take it again if you're studying and getting an SAT study guide, utilizing the practice tests on College Board's website, doing the study questions. So you're taking it a second time, like purposefully, with having studied in between the first time you've taken it, so that you're likely to improve your score.
Oh, okay.
Because it
Yeah,
is a test that there is a cost for the exam.
Oh, I never knew. That's why I'm just tomorrow. I'm just gonna do whatever I know, but I will take it again later on. So like, I study for it.
Awesome. Okay. And so to get there along this path, it's very important to set goals. So for example, you could have a long-term goal or you could have a short-term goal. I've thrown out some ideas here. Can someone give me an example of a short-term goal? Any volunteers? How about a short-term goal would be something that's maybe 2 weeks from now? I want to earn an A on my math test, okay? 4 weeks from now. I want to get through 2 modules, within the next month or two, whatever you set your goal as, okay? And you can set your goals, you could put them on a calendar, you could put them on a timeline, you could create a timeline and you can hang it on the wall as something that's going to inspire you, to complete each of these goals, and you can mark them off as you go. So I think I'm a list maker and I like to have lists and cross things off my list. So I think it's really helpful to have something hanging on the wall that I can visually see and try to figure out where I am and where I want to be. Anyone else have any ideas of any short-term goals? What's another short-term goal? No? How about that, taking that SAT, right? So a short-term goal would be, you're going to take the test tomorrow, and then a short-term goal is, I'm going to get my scores back, and then 2 months, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, I'm going to take it again. And you can break that up into increments of how you're going to study for that exam, how many pages each night you're going to read in your study book, and how you're going to prepare. So those would be short-term goals. How about some long-term goals? Anyone in the chat? What are some long-term goals?
Graduate with very big GPA.
Good, 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 good.
Like in a year, I'm trying to be done with school.
Perfect. Yes. And then
yeah,
and you can think about some goals to get there, right? Like by December, I'm going to have these 3 courses complete. Then by the following May, I'm going to have these 3 courses complete, and set yourself some deadlines. Especially if any of you are behind in credits or anything like that, it's really important that you set some goals so that you can fit everything in within your time frame. Awesome. I love it. Any other long-term goals? Yeah. Long-term can be all the way out. I want to be a civil engineer by such and such date. 5 years from now, I want to be doing this. 10 years from now, I want to be starting a family. Those are some examples of long-term goals.
Hi, guys. I'm Miss McMillan, one of the school counselors here with Florida Virtual School. I've gotten to know some of you already, but those of you who haven't, I'm very excited to meet you. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about 4 areas of job fulfillment. So one of the things that I always think about are the people in my life, maybe you could think about people in your life, that complain about their job, that dread going to work every day, that don't feel inspired in their work, don't feel maybe respected or useful, and certainly don't feel like they're in a job where they're able to grow and, have a job where they're excited to go to work every day. So when we talk about, getting to know ourselves, learning about ourselves, I really feel that it comes back to wanting to have a job where we feel that fulfillment, where you go to work every day and, sure, we all have a bad day once in a while, but in general, you want to feel inspired in your work. You want to feel that you have a career where you can grow and you have opportunities to grow, feeling useful at work and feeling respected. And one of the ways that we do that is by getting to know ourselves, learning about ourselves. And how do we learn about ourselves? Do you guys have any ideas about that? How you get to know yourself? I think you're doing some of those things right now. Anybody have an idea? Becoming a journalist? Great. How about the classes that you're taking? Somebody in the chat box just said trying new things. That is so huge. leaving our comfort zone. Maybe it's a job, doing something that you,
Taking a leap of faith.
Yeah.
sure, yeah, leaving your comfort zone, trying something new. Great. Anybody else?
What if you are confused, like you're good at a lot of things and you're doing this, but you don't know what to choose in the end?
So we're going to talk a lot about that today. And there are a lot of ways to get to know yourself better and to kind of figure out what you are most passionate about. What are your values? What are your interests? And sometimes we like a lot of different things, but we're not really sure how that translates to a job. Maybe we know we like to play sports, for example, but I know I'm not going to be a professional athlete. So how does that translate to a career choice? Well, when we take different classes that are offered to us, whether it's in high school, in college, in a technical program, in a trade school, we get to try different things and we get to learn about different career options. Maybe you're not going to be the next, Michael Jordan, but you could go into sports marketing. You could go into athletic training. You could become a PE teacher. So there are a lot of ways to let our passions and our interests kind of drive our career choices. And when you think about the people that we all know, I mean, I know some people who really just dread going to work every day. It's because they're not passionate about what they're doing. What they didn't do, maybe for a lot of reasons, maybe they wanted to deliberately choose something and they weren't able to, but they didn't deliberately choose a career that they feel passionate about. And that's what we want you guys to really think about. We want you to get to know yourselves. We want you to find things that you're passionate about. And I'm going to tell you a quick story, which is that I didn't know what I wanted to do until after I went to college, which probably seems kind of backwards, right? That probably seems a little bit backwards, but I didn't know. So I went to college and I started taking classes and I thought I wanted to be a pre-law major. And actually 80% of people that enter college end up changing their major. So it's perfectly acceptable. And actually, as you start taking classes in college and maybe you'll try something that you never thought you'd want to do and you realize you have a great interest in that, or maybe you'll do what I did and start off thinking that you definitely know what you want to do. And I started taking classes in pre-law and I realized for several different reasons that it wasn't for me. And actually, it wasn't until I got into my first job out of college that I really realized I wanted to be a school counselor. And that's because I was talking to people who were, had different careers, learning about what they did. I took a job where I got to kind of leave my comfort zone. I worked for a nonprofit after I graduated college. It was totally out of my comfort zone. I had to do different things in that career than I had ever done before. But it was actually through that career that I discovered that I wanted to be a school counselor. So taking those classes, whether it's, maybe a volunteer opportunity, whether it's work experience, you're going to get to know yourself. So what I don't want you to do is leave here feeling pressure that you need to know. And that's why I told you that quick story about me, because you don't need to know. What we want you to do, though, is to be excited about learning, engaged in your learning, and excited to try new things. Maybe a friend is going to take part in a different volunteer opportunity, that something you've never done before. And they say, hey, do you want to come with me? Maybe you go try it. Maybe you leave your comfort zone and you go do that thing. And maybe you discover something that could lead to a career that you never knew about before. So it's so important to try new things. I think, okay, Melinda, would you mind going to the next slide? Sorry.
Yes. And another thing to point out too, that was what Ms. McMillan was saying to that, is when she was talking about people changing their careers, because typically, traditionally, you may think of your grandparents or even your parents who start on one career path and they work for the same company their entire life, all the way through till they retire. And what we found is that's very atypical. Typically, people will change careers many, many times. And why? Because they're growing and developing. Like Ms. McMillan said, she did not realize what her path was going to be until years later, because she didn't have those experiences to learn from. So we just want you to keep that in mind, that it's not a straight path. And
you know what, we get a lot of pressure from our families, or many of us do. I know I did. And that's why, when I thought I was going to initially change majors, I remember calling my parents, and it was this big deal. And my parents were very upset. They thought I wasn't going to be able to graduate in 4 years because now I'm changing majors. So there's a lot of reasons, and we deal with a lot of things that may cause us to choose a career not deliberately, not really something that we're passionate about because someone says to us, this is what you should go into, or maybe it's the family business and what, your uncle did, your dad did, and so you just kind of follow that path. But it's so important to really get to know yourself and what drives you. What are your values? What are the things that you want to be able to do? So if we look at this particular slide, one of the things that jumps out at me is creativity. So if you're someone, for example, that needs to be able to be creative, that needs to work in a team environment and, needs to be able to develop their ideas, and you're not going to be inspired if you work in a job where you can't do that, where maybe you're sitting behind a cubicle and you have to do the same rote tasks every day and you don't get to be that creative person, you're probably not going to have that job fulfillment that we talked about earlier, right? So it's so important to identify your values, your interests, and your skills. What are your skill sets? What are the values that are most important to you? Is it most important to you to make a lot of money? Or is it more important to you to have a job where you feel like there's advancement or there's variety in your day? Some of my students have said to me that it's so important that I'm able to not be sitting at a desk. I need to be able to go places. I need to be able to interact with different people. I need that variety in my day. So choosing, for example, to become an accountant is probably not going to make you happy because you're going to sit at a desk and you're not going to have that variety at all. My brother's an accountant, so I know they do a lot of the same stuff all the time. So if your personality is that you love organization and detail and that job sounds great to you, then that's going to be a really good fit. But if you need that variety in your day, so it's so important to get to know what those values are and those characteristics. So it's a great time to start thinking about that. What are you interested in? Is helping people the most important thing to you? Does that bring you satisfaction? Does that make you happy? Playing sports, whether you're artistic, whether you love technology and computers, thinking about your favorite courses. What are the classes that you've taken? And maybe giving some thought to this. I don't know that, at your age, I had ever actually sat down and thought, what are the classes I've taken that have been the most exciting to me, that I really loved? What do I want to do something more with, or what did I not like at all? And maybe I thought I was going to love and I didn't. And so I'm going to try something different. Leaving your comfort zone and maybe taking a class in something that you're kind of interested in, but you're not sure, just to kind of try it. Those are the ways that we get to know our values, our interests, and our skills.
And I have a quick story real quick that has to do with that. So I had a friend in college and her parents told her she had to be a business major. And she wasn't interested in business, but she was all into theater. I mean, just so into it. And so she wanted to major in theater. And her dad said, well, I'm only going to pay for college if you major in business. And so she double majored, and she majored in business and theater. And then she got a job working for like this theater company, and she helped with their marketing. And so she did the business side, but she got to merge that with her love, which was actually theater. So anyway, so this kind of ties into your interests and how you can pull those together to make that happen for you.
Absolutely. And another thing we were talking before about, if you love sports, but maybe becoming a professional athlete is not in the cards, that there are other types of careers. I mean, I have a friend of mine who loved art, was so passionate about it. And all she ever heard from the people around her, they were trying to be caring, but they used to say to her, the chances of you becoming, the next Picasso, the next great artist, are so slim. You really need to, they had a business, a family business, and they said, you really need to take business courses, and you really need to, to kind of work toward what we do, because that's really a pipe dream. That's a pie in the sky. And, one of the things that we talked about and she ended up pursuing was she ended up becoming an art teacher. So actually, she also does some art therapy. So, you don't always have to, we get in this kind of box thinking where you know, the only option is, you know, maybe the one that we've always thought about or the one that our family talks about, but there's so many different career choices under any kind of interest that we might have that you might just not know about yet. There were so many careers and career options that I was exposed to after high school by way of work, by way of college, talking to my professors, talking to people that I knew that had different jobs I was interested in knowing more about. So you kind of get to know a lot more about what your options are. So here's another really important thing to think about. What are your strengths? It's really hard. Like, most of us are really good at putting ourselves down, unfortunately, and it's harder for us to think about what the positive things about us are. I would challenge you to really think about, what are the things that I'm really good at? And if you struggle with that, ask the people around you that know you the best, a best friend, a parent, an aunt, uncle, a teacher. What are the things that you are best at? Are you highly organized? Are you very creative? Do you work well with others? Are you engaging, energetic? Why do you guys think it might be important to get to know those things? And we've talked a little bit about it, so I'm curious what your thoughts are. Why do you think it's important to know what your skills and strengths are? Anybody? You can use those skills in your career? Absolutely.
To choose
Anybody
the right
else?
thing. To choose the right thing that fits your skills, what you can do, what is your interest.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you one other quick example. I have a friend of mine who always loved to play sports, and she loved to be in a team setting. And she really kind of hated those courses where she had to work on individual assignments. She really loved doing those group assignments. I was kind of the opposite, but she loved that. And today she works as an engineer, an aerospace engineer, actually. And that's what she does all day long. She works as a team. That's what engineers typically do. They work as a team. So she gets to be creative and in that group atmosphere every day. It fits so perfectly with her interests and her skill set that she loves what she does. Great answers, guys.
Yeah, good job.
So what we want you to do are write down 3 of your top values. And you don't have to do this right now, but we just want you to think about it maybe after the presentation, or if you want to jot some things down right now. But what are your 3 top values? The things that are the most important to you in a career. What are your 3 top interests? And you know what? This might change down the road. That's okay. Just put how you feel right now today. And what are your 3 top skills? And again, if you struggle, because sometimes we do struggle to say good things about ourselves, which we all need to be better about, right? We need to be able to identify our strengths and feel good about ourselves. But if we struggle with that, ask the people around you who love and care about you. They'll help you.
Awesome. And as part of this process, remember I talked about it in the beginning, is this tool called an interest inventory. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. This example that I have here, I'm going to show you, is a RIASEC model. And so basically there was a gentleman named John Holland. He was a theorist, and he believed that these 6 different areas, as you can see, realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional, he looked at these as almost like personality types, right? And so he thought that people would have dominant personality types. So he developed this tool, this inventory, where it was called the self-directed search. And you can do that. You can go to a career center and do it. You can do it online, although you have to pay for it if you do it online. But this interest inventory basically asks a series of questions. And then after you answer all of them, it generates a list of potential occupations that you might find interesting. Okay. And then after you take this interest inventory, it basically ranks your top 3 personality types. So for example, yours might be social, enterprising, and artistic. You might be an SEA. And then if you were an SEA, there would be different occupations that person will most likely be more interested in. And we're going to go through each of these different personality types. And I want you guys to think about which one sounds most like you. So here's the Holland hexagon, okay? And you're going to see each of these little pieces of the pie are the different types. And we're going to go through them individually. So the first one is realistic. And so I'm going to read these to you. If we were in a classroom, I'd have you read them for me. But as I read them, I want you to start thinking about, does this sound like me? And then I have some sample occupations on each of these slides that would be an occupation that might relate to that type. So realistic. People who have athletic or mechanical ability prefer to work with objects, machines, tools, plants or animals, or be outdoors. Preference for working with things as opposed to ideas or people. Prefer concrete problems over abstract problems. Okay, so that's key there. They prefer working with things as opposed to people or ideas. So you'll see later, social is going to be someone that really prefers working with people. And so here's some examples you can see over there. And one that sticks out to me is engineer, drafter, auto mechanic. This might be more hands-on, concrete type of jobs. Does anyone have any that they would like to throw out, or does this sound like anybody? Nope. Okay. Next is investigative. These are people who like to observe, learn, investigate, analyze, evaluate, or solve problems, primarily of a scientific or mathematical nature. Prefer working with ideas as opposed to people. Do not like highly structured settings. Okay. And so this might be your STEM fields, you know, science, technology, math, those kind of fields. And so you'll notice that the occupational titles on the right-hand side are very science, math oriented. Okay. And at this point in your life, especially if you're already in high school, you will probably notice that you're more drawn toward the math and sciences, or more like the humanities, like your English classes or your social studies, psychology, you know, those kinds of classes. So you probably at this point are getting a good idea. Does this sound like anybody? Anyone want to raise their hand or throw something in there?
On this one, I like computers and programming.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah, and so you're going to see that you'll probably find when we get through all 6 of these, you're going to find 2 or 3 that really stand out that sound like you. So keep that one in mind.
This one, the only thing that, you know, gets to me is the professor. I've been told like all my life that I can explain stuff. So this one kind of like me, but
Awesome.
not that much.
That's perfect. And again, you're probably going to find several of these that relate. It's not going to be just one specific one. So keep that one on your list, okay?
What the other one? What is a sociologist? The last one.
Okay, so a sociologist, so think about it this way. So say a psychologist deals primarily with people, and they deal with interacting with people. A sociologist is like your community at large. So a sociologist, yes. So if you take a sociology class, it's going to focus more, it's more general on society and the community as opposed to a psychologist, which is very specific. Good question. And artistic, people who have artistic, innovating, or what does that say? Intuitional abilities and like to work in unstructured situations using their creativity or imagination, prefer working with self-expressive ideas. So this one is good, like the one I was telling you about my friend. So very artistic. So she could use the theater side of herself and also put it with the business. And here are some sample occupations. I was thinking of the gentleman who just spoke up a minute ago when he was talking about programming. So you could be somebody who's very interested in the technology side, but you also like to do, you might be good at web designing. Something like that, where you could throw in your technical skills along with your artistic abilities and creative side. So anyway, here's just a few different sample occupations. And so you can put this on your list.
When you guys talk about double degree, like, you know, joining two kind of fields, do you basically go to a field 4 years, and the same 4 years you're going to another field, like you're studying basically two courses like that, or what is?
Yes. So when you first go to college, the first 2 years, you do a lot of courses that are like survey courses. So you're learning a lot about different things. It's not till you really choose your major and then you get into your junior and senior year where you really delve into your major and you focus on very specific things.
Oh,
Okay, so it doesn't mean that you're not taking other electives here and there, but you're really honing in and focusing on one specific area. So that's what a major is for those of you that don't know. So a major is a major focus of interest, and then your courses are going to be going along that path. Okay, but yeah, first 2 years you do a lot of exploration. And then social, people who like to work with people to inform, enlighten, help, train, or cure them, or to help them live up to their potential, prefer solving problems through discussion, usually do not prefer to work with things. So this is kind of the opposite side of that realistic one. This is more social. And you can see by this list here, if you read, you're very involved in working with people. So here, counselors at the top of the list, teachers, social workers, nurses, minister, recreation leaders, different things like that. So does this sound like anybody?
It sounds
like-
like you and I, Miss Lefteris.
Yes, for sure. This is definitely part of my code. I'm an SEA. Anyone else? Okay, enterprising. People who like to work with people, but this one's a little bit different from the social. So they like influencing, persuading, leading, or managing them for economic gain or for the goals of an organization. Enjoy leadership positions and dislike details. Okay, so a lot of people who are social also tend to be in this enterprising in some way. So some examples here are a restaurant manager, a sales representative. They like working with people, influencing, persuading people to buy different things. Maybe someone in marketing, human resources, things like that. Does that sound like any of you guys' outgoing personalities? And our last one is conventional. People who like to work with data, have numerical or clerical ability, carrying things out in detail or following through on others' instruction, prefer structured situations over ambiguous ones. So they are people that like things to be predictable. Okay, and so like Miss McMillan's brother, who's the accountant, he's probably very structured and things probably have to be just so, and that suits him best, and that's where he's most comfortable. So anyway, here's just some examples: banker, financial analyst, credit manager, an inspector, any kind of in these managerial positions where they're kind of in charge, or clerical things. Maybe you're an office assistant or something like this, very detailed jobs. So now what I want you to do is think about which three sound most like you. And does anyone want to share? And I'll go back to the top so you can look at them. Anyone want to share what they think their top three are? Nobody? Not even our volunteer? Go ahead.
I'm more a social and artistic. They go with a lot of things that I would like to be.
Yes, I can tell that from, this is one of my students.
Oh,
So I can see this in you. So yeah, and like Ms. McMillan said, you might talk to your friends or your parents and show them this and say, hey, which one of these do you think is most like me? But anyway, go ahead.
I'm more of investigate and artistic.
Awesome, very good. Yeah, it's fun to look at these and try to figure out what you are. And so we have some different resources that you can use. So I would love for everybody to take the self-directed search, but that's not possible. There are tons of interest inventories. But if you get this 3-letter code, and in your mind, you can say, I'm an SCA. There are these different resources that Ms. McMillan's going to talk to you about where you can actually take this code and you can just play around with it. You can go on this website called ONET. You're going to put in here, you can see on this slide, I put the web address at the top. Maybe one of our helpers here could copy and paste it and put it in the chat for you guys so that you can pull that up yourself. But you can go in and you can put the code that you think you are. hit go, and it'll generate a list of occupations. So I'll let Ms. McMillan take over, and she'll talk to you about some different assessment tools you guys can use.
Okay, and I think I just put that in the chat box. So let me know if any of you guys click on it. If it doesn't work, we'll try it again, but I think it worked. So yeah, this is a really great way to use that RIASEC code to put in the 3, that because you might say there's more than 3 that kind of fit me. And I would say then you want to choose the 3 that you feel the greatest fit. So for example, on this slide, we're showing investigative, social, and artistic. So using your code, you can see which occupations would match your choices. Some of them, you might say, oh my gosh, everyone's always told me I should do that. Or, oh, wow, I didn't ever think about doing that. So it's really kind of a neat way to let that bit of self-discovery in terms of, what your interests are, and then kind of match it up to see what the careers come up as. And I also want to take you to FloridaShines. This is their career plan, their future page, but there's so much you can do with FloridaShines beyond just these career searches. You can do scholarship searches. There's so much information on here, but for our purposes right now, I want to kind of show you a little bit about what you can do with this site. You can search careers with the keyword. So I saw a couple of people in the chat box say that I think I saw electrical engineer, I saw surgeon, I saw a few other things. So you can go ahead and you can actually, in that first box, you can actually put a specific career down and you can search about it. And you can find out all kinds of information about what education you would need for that career, or what training you would need for that career, what the average salary is for that career, just lots of great information. But if you're not sure of a specific career, but maybe you're really strong in the arts or the sciences, you can put an industry in as opposed to a specific career. In the example, they show kind of a business industry, but you can choose from so many. So you can use this to search that way as well. And then you can kind of narrow it down by what comes up, and you read about the different career options, and that's another great way to kind of get to know what you can do with the interests that you have.
Yeah.
But then I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead. It's okay.
I was simply going to say that it's really helpful. I found when I was looking at this is that, like, if I put in school counselor and I thought, oh, I'm considering school counseling, but I don't know if I want to be a school counselor, you can click related occupations, and it's going to create these job clusters of different related occupations to school counselors. And you're like, oh, I didn't think about being a social worker. That didn't occur to me. What exactly is a social worker? What do they do? And it just kind of gives you all these different occupations that you might be interested in. And one other point is, when you're looking through these, is to look at the job outlook. And each of them will have it. They'll rate the job outlook. So if you're not familiar with that, job outlook is how easy am I going to be able to get a job? So when I finish school and I'm a nurse, is the job outlook great, or is it not so great? Am I going to be searching all over looking for a job or not? And so, for example, I'm just going to use the health industry because that's the one I just brought up, was nursing. We know that in the medical field, it's very easy to find jobs, or easier than a lot of occupations. So some jobs are going to have a way better job outlook than others. And that might be very important to you when you're looking, just for job security. So that's something to think about.
It's an excellent point. One of those fields that we know has such a tremendous job outlook right now, and has been for a while, but is that STEM field, the science, technology, engineering, and math. A few years back now, but the projection was 70% of all the new jobs in this country would be in those fields. So it's pretty telling. That would not fit my interest or my strengths, but if it happens to fit yours, those are some really good areas to look at. There's tremendous job outlook there, job growth. But I also wanted to point out on this slide, another awesome feature is this, in the third box where it says, tell us what you would like to do. You can actually answer questions about the type of work that you might enjoy, and they will suggest careers to you based upon your answers there. So that's another really great way to search. And that's going to bring you to an interest profiler where you will answer a whole bunch of questions. I think there's like 60 questions, but honestly, I did this myself the other day, and I think it took me about 15 minutes. It's well worth it. They're not hard questions. They're going to ask you things and all kinds of things about yourself. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just to kind of get to know yourself better. So this is a really great resource. And this is the www.mynextmove.org. Can we put the link in there? Yes, I just saw that in the chat box. I'm going to do that right now.
What do you
So-
guys mean by get to know yourself better?
Well, that was when we're talking about the values, interests, and skills. It's really thinking about, because sometimes it's not intuitive. Like we know we like math, but we don't think about it. We don't think, what are my values? What am I interested in? There's so much involved in choosing a career path, and it's not just I like math, right? Or I like science, or I like computers. So that's what we're talking about for the interest inventory. And another thing I wanted to point out is there are career centers at colleges that are open to the public. Where I went to graduate school, our career center wasn't advertised, but if high school students came in and said, hey, I'm interested in taking an interest inventory, you're going to have a lot more options, right? And so when you go to college, every college has a career center. So what I would recommend is, if that is your path to go to college, the first thing I would do is go to your career center and talk to a career counselor and say, hey, I'd like to do an interest inventory. There are plenty of them online that are free. This one here under FloridaShines is free. But if you want that one-on-one attention to actually sit down with somebody afterwards and talk about your results and things like that, you can do that. And there are some online that you can pay for, like that self-directed search that I mentioned at the very beginning. That is an option. You have to pay for it. But if you did it at a career center, like at a college, it would be free. So anyway, just thought I'd throw out, there's lots of options out there, but we're giving you the free ones.
And guys, well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. It's okay.
Oh, okay. So, I have a job that I thought will, conclude everything I know, but I don't know that job for real. Like, I don't know if that job really going to let me do the other stuff, because my other stuff are like, I don't want to choose them for a career because they're just, small and will not let me do the all of my mind. So like, so doing internship can let me know, is the job really like make me do a lot of
Good job. Good question. I was going to address that in a little bit, but I'm so glad you brought it up. So there are two things that you can do. You can do an internship, or you can actually go to a business and just do an information interview. So I'll start from the beginning and explain the differences. An internship, typically students do these in college, and then they're able to put this on their resumes, but you could absolutely do that in high school too. I knew lots of students that did that. Say, for example, you want to do something in the medical field, okay? Maybe you volunteer at a hospital. Maybe you're interested in animals, so you volunteer at an animal shelter. Maybe you're interested in engineering, so you reach out to an engineering firm. You would be surprised how many companies are open to doing this with students, because they're passionate about what they're doing and they want to pass that along to you. So I would suggest, and it could be something like 5 hours a week in the summer or 10 hours a week.
Okay.
Even if you're there, just doing little menial tasks for them, and you're not like, they can't fully give you projects to work on, you're able to see the culture of the organization. You're able to look around you at these professionals and see what they actually do day to day. And after you do that internship, you might decide, this is not for me. This is not something I'm really interested in. And so that's the value of an internship.
Okay. So do you happen to know like a psychology internship, like a psychologist, like people working with the mental illness, or like mental, or like that kind of field?
So when you guys, when you go to college, you'll be assigned an academic advisor that you will meet with regularly, especially in your freshman year. I don't remember how often, but at least once a quarter, I met with my academic advisor, and they will be able to help you with what internship opportunities are available through your school. The schools bridge connections with all sorts of different occupations. So it's something you can actually ask about. Some schools do more of that than others. So when you go to an open house or on a campus tour, that's something you can kind of ask about. What internship opportunities are for students? Do they help facilitate you getting those opportunities? But very often your academic advisor is going to be the person that's going to help you facilitate those kinds of internship opportunities. And I will tell you that, I did not take advantage of that in college, whereas some of my friends did. And that was a mistake on my part. So I'm going to underscore what Ms. Lefthera said about the importance of doing those internships, because if those opportunities exist for you, take advantage of them. They are
Right.
awesome.
That's right. Okay, thank you so much for this information.
Yeah, or if you don't want to do a full summer-long internship, you can do an information interview, and you can Google that, write that down. And you can find some sample questions online of things that you might ask. And so you would just call a company and say, ask to speak with a supervisor, explain that you're a high school student. I think I may be interested in electrical engineering. I'm not really sure what that involves, but I have a few questions, and I'm wondering if I could take an hour of your time to sit down with you. Yeah, and you could your goal could be, by the end of the summer, I'm going to do 3 information interviews. Yes, and you will learn a lot. It's so much better to be in person with somebody than just to Google it and read online. What does an electrical engineer do? And so they might walk you around and give you a tour of their company and introduce you to 5 electrical engineers, and then you're networking and you're meeting people in the event that you want to do an internship. And so then maybe a year from now, you're in college and you decide that's what you want to do, and you go back to that person and you say, hey, remember I did this information interview? I'm really interested in doing this. Would you by chance have internships available? So you kind of network with people, and information interviews are amazing. So I encourage you to do that.
Thank you so much for telling us this, because I never knew this was possible, like in an information interview.
Yeah, and people are so welcome to it. I mean, I would be shocked. I had students do it in high school all the time, and no one ever came back and said no. I think people like to share their knowledge, and they want to share with young people that really care. So definitely do it.
What is networking? That's my question.
That's a great question. So networking is when you interact with people within your field in order to make connections. So for example, as a school counselor, there are professional organizations. There's the Florida Counseling Association. There's a school counseling association. If you go to these different professional organizations and participate in their workshops, you meet people. And so then when you're looking for a job, you have contacts. And internships are like such an amazing way to meet people, because if you did a summer internship and let's say you met 10 people in that company, and then you finish your rest of years of college, blah, 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 and you come back, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember that you were a hard worker, and you may have been working for free, but they got to see your personality and they got to see your character and that you're a hard worker. And so you've made connections. And so then when you go back looking for a job or an internship, you can go to those people, and then they know people and they can recommend you to other people. And then you've created this whole network of professionals who can help you. Does that make sense?
Some of you may already be doing
thank
that.
you.
I just wanted to say that some of you may already be doing that. You may have a job already that you work where you're making connections with, because you're a good employee, and now you have a supervisor or a manager that will write a recommendation or recommend you for another job. So you might be starting to make those connections on a different level, but certainly starting to make some of those now, which is so important.
They can write you a good letter of recommendation. Like if someone came to me and said, I'm not sure, Ms. Leftheris, if I want to be a counselor, but I'm thinking about being a social worker, I would have 5 people that I could say, oh, really? Let me introduce you to my friend so-and-so. And then you could do an information interview with that person who might introduce you to somebody else. So anyway, that's networking. Great question.
Okay, so there are so many options after you leave high school. And one of the takeaways that I want you guys to leave with today is not that, we're trying to say you need to know what you want to do right now, and you need to use this information to figure it out today or, very soon. That's not what we're saying, but we do want you to get really, we're hoping, excited and engaged in this process so that you choose a path for yourself that's deliberate and purposeful and something that you're passionate about. And right now, Ms. Lefteris talked about small and larger goals. Maybe right now it's just to take a class in an area that you have an interest. So maybe something sparked in our presentation today, sparked an interest in taking a psychology course, or that maybe you might want to be a psychology major. Why not start with a small goal of signing up for a psychology course that Florida Virtual School offers? So then we talk about, further out goals, right? So life after high school, whether we're going to a 4 or a 2-year college, whether we might want to go to technical school, whether we might want to go into the military. There are so many options for after high school, and that's part of what the smaller goal, I know it seems like a big goal, but you don't need to know what you want to do for the rest of your life, but maybe thinking about areas you're interested in so you can kind of help guide what you want to do after high school. So one option is to go to a 4-year college or a university. We're not going to spend a great amount of time on these slides, but I want to let you know that we did recently have some other presentations from our amazing counselor team. So we do have some presentations up on the website. I don't know, I'm going to try to pop a link up in the chat box for you guys to our webinars, because we recently had a college career webinar, a college webinar that I think you might really want to watch if you want to learn more about this in greater detail. But just to touch upon, there are private schools, there are public schools. Private schools typically offer smaller class sizes and typically have higher tuition, but I know that many of us, myself included, have had experiences where because private schools have private endowment money that public schools don't have, sometimes you want to still apply to those private schools, even though the price tag might be too high, because you might end up getting a financial aid award package from that school that might make it the same price as the public school that you were looking at. Public schools typically offer more opportunities for involvement, lower tuition, and usually do have larger class sizes, although that can vary. So it sort of also goes back to your personality type, right? So for me, I knew I wanted to go to a smaller college. That was one of the reasons why the private college was of interest to me. But I have some very good friends of mine. I'm from Connecticut. I have some very good friends of mine that went to UConn, which is a very big school and a public school. And they loved the large class sizes. They loved kind of disappearing in a large room and not being called on, whereas I was in a small class setting and I knew my professors very well and we were called on. And so it was completely different. And it just has to do with, again, what we go back to this whole presentation, getting to know yourself and what's going to work best for you. This is one of those areas where there's no right or wrong. You're going to have Aunt Helen telling you should go to this school because she went there and that's the best school. And you're going to have, people telling you where to go and what you should do. It is such an individual decision and so important that you listen to everybody who cares about you, listen to their feedback because it's so great and it's so important. But ultimately, you want to do what feels right to you and what you think is going to be the best for your personality type.
Okay. Until when do you have the time to apply for scholarships, to apply to colleges? Like, because, we're senior and, we have really short time, but until when no longer you're, going or something like that, like you're getting a scholarship?
So schools and scholarships all have differing deadlines. So it really will depend on that individual, whether it's an organization that's giving out a scholarship, it will depend on what deadline that they have chosen. They're all different, to be honest. There's no set deadline for all of them. Same thing with colleges. You can either go to the college admission website, or you can use a website I like College Board's Big Future website. College Board are the folks that do the SAT, and they have a great search engine for colleges. You can look up all kinds of information, including, the application deadlines, what the average cost of the school is, what, they're looking for in terms of a GPA and grades and SAT scores, or if they're SAT optional, all that kind of information is on their website. Again, we have a really great college webinar. I'm going to try to pop a link in here in just a second into the chat box so you guys can access those, because those webinars are super helpful and about the same length as this one. There's so much information in there, so I think you'll get a lot from that. I also wanted to touch on technical schools. Technical schools cost much less than your typical four-year college, and you can specifically focus on a career or a type of certification. For example, if you want to study automotive, electrical, plumbing, things like that. You have the potential for high earning careers. There might be less extracurricular involvement opportunities. It sort of depends on the program, but very often that is the case. Some great examples that you can see there are medical technician, dental hygienist, police officer, electrician, computer programmer. There's so many. So if that interests you, that's a great way to kind of just specifically study what it is you want to do and not have to do all of the other coursework.
And I encourage you guys to look at the salaries for some of these, because, you know, you can go to school for 4 years, 6 years, you know, like I have done and Ms. McMillan has done, and you will find that most of these technical programs, they make more money than we do. So you may do a program that only takes you 18 months or 2 years, and it's highly technical, and your education is going to be very focused in one area, okay? But you're going to make a lot more money. So I encourage you guys to check out technical schools. If this is a path for you, it is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
And I just popped the College Board link to Big Future, where you can do those searches in that chat box. So if you want to bookmark that or save that, I'm going to try to pop in our webinars right now for you guys as well.
And finally, there's military. So obviously there's a lot of room in the military to gain a lot of skills. And one of the great advantages of the military is they also have educational benefits. They have programs where they can help with tuition assistance. There's, you know, your free healthcare, dental, oftentimes it's free room and board. So the military is a great opportunity for you guys to learn some skills, especially if you're just not sure. You're just not sure what you want to do. You know, you want to serve your country. You want to learn some new skills. This is an amazing opportunity, and you can always reach out to a recruiter in your area.
And guys, I also just popped in the link to all of the webinars. You'll see there are so many different webinars that have been put up on that site. Recently, we've had a resume building and letter of recommendation webinar, how to write a college essay, financial aid webinar, my college options, how to find the best college for you. And then there's even one about college applications and how to apply. There's so many on there, so please do check those out. There's some great information there.
Okay, so we're going to wrap things up. We are so glad you guys came today. We hope you learned a lot of good information. I'm going to close this down, but we're going to stay on here in case you guys have some additional questions. All right, have a great day.
Thank you guys so much for coming.